Barrier islands are long and narrow strips of sand with inlets at either end leading to the back bay.
Barrier islands are important because they protect lagoons, estuaries, and salt marshes from the damaging ocean water.
One organism we found while collecting our data was the Atlantic silverside fish, which is the most abundant fish in the bay. It's an essential food source to other large fish, including the striped bass, bluefish, and even shorebirds.
Along our walk to the beach, we hiked through the thicket, which is an intense and dense group of trees, bushes, and other vegetation. The salt spray influences the growth of berry-producing shrubs such as American holly and the bayberry bush. The thicket is also home to many different birds.
Going to the bay, we walked through what's known as the maritime forest. The vegetation in the area includes slow-growing, salt-tolerant trees such as the Atlantic white cedar, the willow oak, and the sweet bay magnolia.
The American beach grass on the dunes is very important for the health of the dunes. It helps to stabilize them so they aren't completely destroyed during heavy flooding. The roots of the grass hold the sand in place to prevent erosion. Beach grass is also home to many species of insects, animals, and bird species.
This graph shows the data for the average water temperature in the ocean versus the bay in the fall of 2013, spring of 2014, and the fall of 2014. The temperatures taken from the ocean and the bay in both the fall of 2013 and 2014 are warmer than the temperatures taken from the ocean and the bay in the spring of 2014. This is because, unlike metal, water has a high specific heat, so it takes a long time to warm up and cool down.
In the spring, the water is still cold from winter air temperatures, and in the fall, the water is still warm because the high air temperatures in the summer allowed the water temperatures to increase. When our class went to the Island Beach State Park to collect our data, the temperature in the bay was 19.6 degrees Celsius, and the temperature in the ocean was colder at 16.93 degrees Celsius. Since the bay is a smaller volume of water, it takes less time to heat up than the ocean, which is a larger volume of water. In spring of 2014, we saw the same pattern. This graph shows the data for the average water clarity in the ocean versus the bay in the fall of 2013 and the fall of 2014. There was no data in the spring of 2014 due to the extremely cold weather. This test was done by filling the transparency tube with ocean water or bay water, and then releasing the water until the black and white circle is seen. Wherever the stop point is, the height of the water is recorded at this point.
From our data from the fall of 2014, the height measured was 35.14 centimeters in the ocean and 46.71 centimeters in the bay. This means that the water in the bay was clearer or less turbid than the water in the ocean. However, the data from the fall of 2013 states that the water in the ocean was clearer than the water in the bay. It makes more sense for the water to be clearer in the bay than in the ocean because there is less salt in the water, therefore making the water more clear.
As stated before, there is less salt in the bay than in the ocean as shown in our data. This is because the water in the bay is a mixture of both salt water and fresh water.
From the data we collected from fall of 2014, the salinity percentage in the ocean was 32.86%. The salinity percentage in the bay was less at 30.83%.
A similar pattern is seen in both the spring of 2014 and the fall of 2013. The salinity levels are less in the bay than in the ocean.
This graph shows the permeability of the soil and the sand next to the ocean and the bay. The data shows that the permeability of the bay soil was lower than the permeability of the ocean sand, meaning it took longer for the water to soak through the soil than it did through the sand.
In fall of 2014, it took 155.2 seconds for the water to soak through the bay soil, but in the ocean it only took 20.42 seconds. The spring of 2014 and the fall of 2013 exhibit the same pattern. This is because sand particles have a greater porosity than the soil particles because there is more space or air between them.
The diagram on the left shows what the sand would look like, and the diagram on the right shows what the soil would look like. As you can see, there is more space between the sand particles and the soil particles, which will allow for more water to soak through. Barrier islands face many challenges, including erosion, human development on dunes, and pollution. Only barrier islands that are protected by wildlife reserves remain in their natural state today.
After Hurricane Sandy, many homes were damaged due to the erosion of the dunes. Major storms like Sandy can also cause dunes to be eroded and overwashed. When powerful waves approach, they are so strong that the dunes are completely demolished. This also caused the vegetation and animal population that inhabited the dunes, thicket, and surrounding wildlife areas to be destroyed as well.
Humans also have an impact on the dunes because they overdevelop and build different structures and buildings on the dunes. The overdevelopment lessens the amount of dunes, therefore lessening their ability to protect against ocean storms.
The destruction from Hurricane Sandy had a severe impact on the red-knot birds. Their usually abundant food source, horseshoe crab eggs, was decreasing. Hurricane Sandy destroyed the dunes where the horseshoe crabs would normally lay their eggs, which decreased the crab population.
Not enough eggs means not enough food for the red knots, which made their migration to the Canadian Arctic all the more difficult, and the red knot was more likely to become an endangered species.
One of the surrounding rivers in the area in which we collected our data was the Toms River. From the 60s to the 80s, many companies were dumping their waste into the river, but the main contributor was the Ciba-Geigy Specialty Chemicals Company.
In 1966, the company built an underground pipeline that released their toxic waste from the factory into the river. In the 80s and 90s, there was an abnormally high rate of kids getting cancer who lived near Toms River.
Certain cancers included leukemia, brain tumors, and tumors of the nervous system. The townspeople began to suspect that the cancer was linked to the waste dumpage.
The waste was polluting their water source, as well as giving the entire town a pungent smell.
Barrier islands are important habitats for marine life as well as protection from the devastation of strong winds and waves because they absorb some of the energy, which is why they deserve to be protected.